stalked by a possibly obsessive transient man. Not sure if this belongs here, but wanted to share my story. This is still ongoing, so we'll see if it escalates. So it started a few weeks ago with a stranger incessantly knocking on my apartment's door. I live with my boyfriend, but he's not home until late. The knocking persisted over the span of an hour, with 3 different attempts, each one getting more aggressive. The first instance of knock was the standard 3 knock, then the second was the familiar friendly knock, with the last one being a very aggressive 5 knock pound. The last series of knocks really rattled me, and I contemplated if I should escalate things, grabbing my gun, or waiting it out. Fast forward a week later, we now have a Ring camera, since my boyfriend ordered one the night that the first knocking incident happened, because it really freaked me out. Someone's at the door again, and I see that he stares into the camera. He puts his finger up to his mouth, like he's questioning if he should do it, and then does, immediately bending over in a really weird position, with his head down to hide his face. He stands there for a minute or two, but eventually leaves, until I encounter him in person, a few days later, in the apartment complex's laundry room, at night. I went down by myself to switch the washer to the dryer, and there he was in the corner of the room. It startled me, but I'm glad I didn't say anything. He did, refusing to make eye contact. He says, "There she is," which makes my brain go high alert. Oh hell no. I don't recognize him and have no idea who he is. The bigger question is, how the fuck does he know me? Thankfully my boyfriend was home. He had just helped me take out the trash because he wasn't comfortable with me being by myself. He's ex-military and carries a gun on him for work. He rushes down and helps me get the dryer emptied and the wets into the dry. We go back upstairs. He seems genuinely rattled and pleads why I didn't ask him to go with me down there because he thought I was coming back inside. I tell him what happened and what the weird fucking guy said to me, and that it's the same guy that was at our door a few days prior. Walking with urgency into the bedroom, he grabs one of his guns, sits down on the couch, and looks visibly stressed as we wait for the dryer to be done. Seeing how much it freaked him out made me realize, oh shit, am I in danger? Not that I have the survival instincts of a paper towel, but it did really rattle him. He went down himself once the laundry was done. Now fast forward to yesterday morning at 10 a.m. I'm just about to put on my shoes and head out, and lo and behold, it's the same fucking guy yet again. This time he's leaning on the doorway and has his foot propped on the wall. As I'm watching the Ring camera footage, I contemplate just opening the door and using my bear spray on him. Lol. I don't know why, but his body language really pissed me off. He stayed for a minute until leaving. I wait 2 hours for the coast to be clear until I head out for the day, only to see him walking past me from the parking lot into the building. Really fucking weird timing. As I'm driving away, I see him walking down the street. This guy is now giving me the proper heebie-jeebies and not sure where to go from here. Save the 2 Ring camera vids to show management in case things escalate, because I'm not sure if it's serious enough right now. That comment, "There she is," when I was in the laundry room alone, at night, really did freak me out though. I don't really know nor care to know his intentions because his body language is unsettling. Well, that's creepy. But wait for the next Reddit story. I think I saw something that I was not supposed to have. So occasionally I drive to McD's for a breakfast on my way to work, or just if I'm up early, and this is around the time of 5:30 to 6. It's always dark at this time. Today I was driving back, and I noticed 2 men in the wooded area by the side of the road I drive on. They were both in black, and they were dragging what looked like a black bag, trash bag, but quite big. I sort of slowed down to get a better look, and I pray they didn't notice me or see my reg, but it was rather odd. There was no cars nearby and no other people around. Super dark, but I could make out they were about 30-40 perhaps. But I was driving at about 40 miles an hour when I clocked them, and slowed down to around 30, maybe just out of curiosity. I've reported this online to the police, but I really would like to know what was in that bag. I won't be returning or going to check it out. Genuinely afraid of what I might find. In the back of my mind, I'm hoping it's just some guys fly tipping, but then I also have this little voice telling me that something way more sinister was at play. I mean, how did they get it there without a vehicle? That's what I want to know. If it took 2 of them to carry it, how far had they been walking with it? Perhaps they were dropped off by a car or something. Anyway, I freaked out on the drive back, thinking every car was following me home. Even stopped at the end of my street to make sure no cars were loitering before making it to my house. Didn't feel like eating the breakfast in the end either. What would you do in that situation? Let me know in the comments. Meanwhile, Let's move into the next Reddit story. I'm in my 50s now, and I finally told my sister why I was so overprotective when we were kids. I'm sure this happened in the mid-80s. I was 12, and my sister was 9. We walked home from school every day, a route we knew by heart. It's funny how a memory can stay so vivid for 40 years, but I can still feel the exact moment the hair on my arm stood up. We were about halfway home from school when I noticed an older man who was just repairing some shoes, I think that's the way he's earning money, on the side road. Now I know my sister was a very lively girl, and I'm not lying when I say she's the prettiest in their classroom, and even in our block. I got the chills the moment he looked at my sister. It's a different kind of creeps. It's something that you will feel your hairs rising. When we walked past him, I became alert of what's happening behind us, and my guts never betrayed me. He started following us, keeping a consistent distance. My sister, being 9, was totally oblivious. She was just chatting away about her day, swinging her backpack. And I can't even scream. It's like I don't know how to talk when I'm full of stress and fear with the situation. I knew if we turned onto our street, which was quiet and lined with trees, that we'd be alone with him. Right before our turn, there was a small local restaurant. I didn't explain anything. I just grabbed my sister and pulled her inside. We didn't buy anything. I led her straight to the back, near the restrooms, and we just stood there in the narrow hallway. I remember my sister was confused and started complaining that she wanted to go home because she's hungry and wants to eat cookies that our mother promised to bake that day, but I just kept my hand on her shoulder and kept on gesturing to be quiet. I peeked through the side window. Maybe 30 seconds later, the man walked past. He stopped. He stood on the sidewalk, looking up and down the road, looking genuinely frustrated that he'd lost sight of us. He lingered for what felt like an hour, but was probably only 2 minutes, before he finally gave up and kept walking. We waited a long time before I felt safe enough to leave. From that day on, I refused to take that route. I made us walk 2 blocks out of the way, and I never let her be more than an arm's length away from me. Last week, we were talking about our childhood, and she asked me why I was always so bossy and paranoid about her leaving the house alone back then. When I finally told her the truth, the look on her face says she had no idea she was ever in danger. I'm 54 now, and I still think about that man, and I still feel the same chills every time we walk past that route. That gave me chills. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Now I'm moving to the next Reddit story. Stalked to my apartment. This happened a few weeks ago after I met my dad so he could drop off some stuff, including prescriptions. I wonder if that was why this guy was acting weird. I went back inside my building, where I live, and pressed the button on the elevator. When it opened, there was a man coming out but the elevator. After I went in, he followed me. He stood so close to me, we were touching. He was older than me, and someone I'd only seen a couple times. He seemed maybe stoned. I tried to be polite and asked if he forgot something, and that's why he came back in the elevator. He just said no. I was really anxious about him seeing what floor I got off at, but I got off at my floor, and so did he. He followed me down the hallway but walked a bit past me, probably so I wouldn't panic. Then I quickly went in my apartment. I was really anxious because my husband wasn't home, and the guy was pacing in front of my door. I considered calling the police or my husband. I suddenly heard one knock and then another. He only knocked twice, but it still freaked me out. I had a Zoom appointment in a few minutes, and I was hoping he'd just leave. I had my appointment, and then I looked out the peephole and saw nothing, and I was so relieved. My relief would soon disappear. My husband came home and saw the guy outside our door. My husband texted me about it. Then he asked him, was there something he could help him with? And the guy quickly left. He'd been outside my door for over an hour. My guess is that he wanted my prescriptions, but I don't know. It was really scary. I really wish I knew why he was there. I also wish my neighbors would have seen him and seen how weird it was. Same subreddit, different city, same feeling. That someone was always watching. Creepy, delusional uni student kept stalking and harassing me within the course of less than 10 days when I made it clear I was not interested. This happened a couple of months ago. I'm a nursing student, and during my first placement, I met two Indian international students, M plus F. I simply followed them to the nearest bus stop to get home, since I don't usually take public transport. I was mainly speaking to the female student. On the bus, the male got too ahead of himself and sat right next to me at the back. It made me genuinely uncomfortable because I was just trying to mind my own business. He kept asking irrelevant questions like, "Are you single? Do you live around here? And there's this guy I know who I think you'd like." I didn't mind staying friendly throughout placement to be respectful, but I had no interest beyond that. The next day, he started following me around the hospital. He came to my ward during breaks and kept saying cringe, delusional things. I told him multiple times to stop because I wasn't interested. He began creeping me out. He would come into my ward staff room even after I told him not to. Once, while I was on my phone ignoring him, he grabbed my phone and ran around the ward with it, as if I would somehow find that attractive. It made me extremely uncomfortable. On the bus, he would sit close to me even after I deliberately told him not to. He would try to flirt by taking my bus card, which had private details, including my address. This would happen during rush hour, and I felt too uncomfortable in the moment to confront him properly. Later, he mentioned specific details about my home. That's when I realized he had memorized my address from my bus card. I started taking a different bus for safety, but I caught him stalking me to that bus stop too. After placement ended, I refused to contact him. He kept leaving missed calls on my phone. Eventually, I called back to ask why he was calling. He was angry that I ignored him and told me he had spent the first week of term 2 outside my class from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. just to see me. That completely shocked me. During that call, he somehow figured out I was on campus, stalked me until my class ended, and came 20 stops away from his apartment to see me. I told him again to stop because I wasn't interested and tried to go home. He followed me onto the tram even after I told him not to sit near me. He kept making uncomfortable comments like, "Let's do a staring competition," and "You're blushing." I wasn't blushing. I just have acne on my cheeks. A few days later, he followed me again on campus. He pressured me to take a walk with him, which I refused multiple times. He then started making sexual comments. That was my final straw. I told him clearly that I was not interested, that he was making me uncomfortable, and that his behavior was extremely disrespectful. I haven't spoken to him since, and told him to stay away from me. The entire situation left me feeling disgusted and paranoid, and I still feel that way to this day. No one should have to deal with harassment or stalking like this. This isn't about all international students. I am the child of immigrant parents myself. But this level of behavior should never be tolerated. Universities need to take harassment and stalking seriously to ensure female students feel safe on campus and during placements. And for our next Reddit story, we have the same feeling that someone was watching, being hunted in the woods. When I was in college, a few of my high school friends, I'll call them D, L, and K for this story, and I still loved hanging out at weekends. We would often sit in our local woods, buy alcohol, and have a few drinks together. On one Saturday in July, we decided to head out to a forest a few miles away. It was daylight, and we planned to explore as much of it as possible before it got dark. The forest was really dense in most places, and a lot of daylight would be shrouded in shadow even when the sun was at its highest. But it was calm and peaceful. The forest was located behind a prison, which added some fear, but seeing as it was daylight, we didn't think about it much. Once we stepped into the forest, we pushed our way through into the dense trees for around 45 minutes. We were chatting away and just catching up as friends do. Not long after, we saw something through the trees in the near distance, and when we reached it, we noticed it was a fully built small cabin. It was a hexagonal shape, with thick log walls and sticks and mud for a roof. We noticed a huge deep fire pit next to the cabin, and trash everywhere. It looked as though it was recently used. We were unsettled, but it was daylight and the forest was calm. We shared thoughts about who could have built it, and even suggested an escaped prisoner had wandered into the forest after escaping. Looking back on it now, an escaped prisoner wouldn't hide in the forest behind the prison and build a cabin. We were young, and I guess excited about a mystery. The cabin didn't have a door, so we knew there wasn't anything inside. We did head inside though to see what we could see, and when we all stepped in, we noticed a bunch of tools hanging on the log walls, rusty saws, hammers, and screwdrivers. This unsettled us more, and debated leaving before whoever built this returned. But, because we were young adults, and there were 4 of us, we thought we'd be okay, and decided to not just stay, but to take these tools and head even deeper into the forest in an attempt to build our own cabin. After a few hours, we had only put up a few logs before we got bored. We decided to call it a day and head back home, but we left the tools where we had started building our cabin and neglected to return them. Fast forward a week, and we decided to head back to the forest and find that cabin to see if anything had changed. Before we set out, we bought a load of hairspray and marshmallows from our local store so we could build a fire in the fire pit we found. When we got to the forest, it was quite late, and the sun was starting to set. This was the plan so we could have a glowing fire in the dark with our drinks and snacks. When we reached the cabin, we noticed it had been completely destroyed. All the logs were torn down across the site. We debated what could have happened, but we figured that when the person or people who built it returned and found their tools had disappeared, they decided to tear down their cabin because it had been found. We were worried about someone coming back when the fire had lit, but we still wanted to stick to the plan as much as possible. Because the forest was so dense, we decided to move to a different site and hoped the forest would conceal us as much as possible. We walked for around 30 minutes to a new spot, dug a pit, and lit our fire. For a while we had a great time. We had a few drinks, roasted marshmallows, and my friend Elle, who brought his guitar, played us a few songs. After an hour or so, we saw flashlights between the trees some distance away, followed by shouting. We noticed there were a few men heading towards us, but because the forest was so dense, it was slowing them down. We looked at each other and tried to come up with an idea. We knew the forest would be too hard to navigate in the dark, especially to the south, where it became even thicker and we'd be cornered. Me and Dee really wanted to run, but Al and Kay thought they'd be caught anyway, and were going to try and either hide in the area or try and reason with them. Me and Dee ran for it. We didn't want to head to either side of the men, because they would cut us off, so the only option was south, into deeper and thicker forest. We had a flashlight of our own, but we tried to hide as much of the light as possible, so the men following would either lose us or not see us. After a grueling 20 minutes of running through thick forest, which has scratched almost every part of our bodies, we came to a barbed wire farmer's fence. We looked back and couldn't see anything, but we could hear the men in the distance. We knew we didn't have long, and this fence went on and on both ways. We decided to climb the fence in the hope the men wouldn't follow, so both of us started to climb. I managed to take my hoodie from around my waist and cover some of the barbed wire, but inevitably, some of it did cut us. We managed to make it over to the overside, and instead of continuing south, we decided to travel along the fence until we found a way back through and around the men. We had no idea what was happening to L and K, and we debated calling the police when we were able, but we weren't meant to be lighting fires and didn't want to get into trouble. After a while, we came across a section we could hop over safely and into a less dense part of the forest. We had no signal on our phones and couldn't call either L or K to see if they were okay. We continued a little while longer and came across an exit to the forest. We couldn't hear anything from behind us, but we could see some houses in the distance. We decided to head to the house and under street lamps before deciding what to do next. But as we go closer, we could see that K and L were already under a street lamp near the houses. We ran up to them and asked them what had happened. They went on to say that they decided to hide because L had his guitar and couldn't effectively run with it. And it worked. The men arrived at the fire just as K and L hid behind some logs, just outside the firelight. They said the men looked to be a lot older than us and seemed very aggressive with what they thought were crowbars or something similar. As the men were shouting for us and talking, L and K managed to make their escape. As they were walking towards the edge of the forest, they noticed a pickup truck parked on a logging trail with its headlights on, but no one inside. We think this was their truck. They then ran out and towards the local houses where they found us. We went back to that forest a few more times, but never ventured as deep, and only during the day. That's it for today, guys. Hope you liked it. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe to the channel.